Hi everyone, I'm Ashley Riddell and welcome to another Tutorialbucket tutorial. This time what we're looking at is creating fake tattoos. Now if you have a look at this image we've got in front of us here, that looks pretty convincing, but as you can see, fake, 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 fake. It's not real. Now in this tutorial we're going to learn a couple of special tricks that don't normally get covered in the other net tutorials on how to create tattoos. In particular, you'll notice how well this blends in with light reflections. A special little secret I'll show you and how to get that effect. Okay, first of all, we need some raw material. I'll just go over to another file I've got open, which is our beautifully customized tattoo heart with Tutorialbucket's logo on it, and we'll bring it over to our image. I'm just using the move tool to do this. You can use whatever method spins your wheels. I'll just bring it over to my shoulder. I'll just drop it into place. Alright, the existing tattoo that I've got there is finished. I'll just turn that off for the time being so I don't get distracted by it. And I'll move this into position and we're ready to go. Now the things that we need to do first of all are the blending mode for our new tattoo layer. I'm just going to name my layer tattoo so I don't get confused, and I change the blending mode from normal to multiply. Now multiply will wipe out all of the white areas, so you don't need to worry about making detailed selections. This is a selection-free process, so it's really quite straightforward. Alright, next thing we need to do is we're going to sculpt this a little bit so it fits onto the shoulder. Now if you know a bit about displacement maps, knock yourself out, make a displacement map. If you don't, doesn't matter. I'm just going to use a very simple manual method which is called transforming. Now I've got my tattoo active. I'll go into the edit menu and choose free transform. As you can see, there's a shortcut for Control T for the PC, and for the Mac that would be Command T. And it brings up the transform box. Very, very easy to use. Go outside of a corner, you get those bent double arrows, and you can use it to rotate, which I'll do first. Next thing we need to do is to wrangle its shape a little bit. Now for twisting the shape, you can just grab a corner and that will serve as a scaling function. Now I don't want to do that. I want to use the control key on the PC, on the Mac that's the command key, and go on a corner, and that then allows you to do a thing called skewing. Now by skewing you can more accurately get this thing to twist into the right sort of shape that you're after. So I'll just skew this, twist it up a bit, drag up the corner a little bit there, just move it around a little bit, and almost there, but it would be really nice if I could warp this a little bit as well. Well, you can. If you've got a transform box open, you'll find up on your menu line this thing. This thing up here will convert your transform into a warping grid. Now, warping grid has these handles that you can use to twist and bend it into a much more curved shape, but you can just go anywhere inside of this grid and just push it around and pull it into the shapes that you want to have. So with a combination of pushing and shoving and stretching and twisting, you'll be able to get this to look pretty much the way you want it to look. Now again, if it's not enough for you, or if it's not good enough, what you might want to do is to resort to something like the liquify filter or use a displacement map. There are plenty of tutorials on how to do those sort of things elsewhere, and we at Tutorialbucket will have tutorials on those shortly if they're not up already. Alright, now I'm pretty much happy with this. This will do for the time being. You get the idea. To confirm your transform changes, just press enter and it's in position. Okay, next thing. It is on the surface, it's in multiply mode, but it doesn't really blend in well. Now the regular tutorials will say, hey, lower the opacity. Okay, well, let's try that. We'll lower the opacity on the layer to about 70%. Yeah, it's okay, but it's not really as convincing as it could be. We want to go the extra mile here at Tutorialbucket, so let's look at a method that is a little bit secret, but is really very, very cool. Go inside of your layer, find some free space in there and double click. This will bring up the layer style palette. I'll just drag this over so we can see what we're doing. And the trick that we're going to be using here is down on this third box at the bottom called the blend if box. Leave it set to blend if grey, and we're interested in blending with the underlying layer. We're trying to bring out light reflections. So that's at this light end of the scale. If I just click and drag this thing, you'll see what it does. It gradually wipes out the pixels on the tattoo layer and replaces them with the light pixels below. But it's very much yes or no, on or off. I would like to be able to do this a lot more gradually. So what you do is drag this back. On the PC, use the Alt key, hold it down. On the Mac, use the Option key and hold it down. Click on that and it will split that little white marker. Take the innermost white marker and drag it over, and you get a gradual gradient application of that white blending. Now that lets the underlying lighter pixels shine through and just makes it look that much more convincing. Eyeball it for the amount that you'll need to do. Now the opacity, we'll go back up to opacity for the layer. Yes, we can now drag down the opacity to match up with our light reflection. So I'll just leave it somewhere around about 75, should be about right for this. And say OK. Now it's starting to look pretty good. I'll just move this into 100% so we can really see this in nice sharp definition. And all we really need to do now is to soften the edges. This is supposed to be a tattoo, and if it's on skin, it's not going to have these lovely crisp edges. They need to be blurred up a little bit. So let's go into our filter menu, choose blur, and Gaussian blur. Now again, the amount of Gaussian blur, you need to eyeball this, and it has to be in the context of the image as well. For this particular image, a radius of about 1, 1.1, 1.3, somewhere around there, will soften it up nicely and make it blend in. Say OK. Let's zoom out a little bit and see how it all looks. I think that's a pretty convincing tattoo.